I want to tell you a story, and then I'm going to contradict myself. 2 months ago, an investment bank, asked me to come and talk to their HR team, or human capital management, which is the right word. If you call them HR people, they look at you funny. And there were 80 of them in the room with the exec, the head of their HR division, and said, come and speak to us about trends in AI and robotics and how it's impacting human resourcing. And that's a fascinating topic because, all the way from identifying candidates to the channels through which they come into your organization, through interviewing. You can do video interviewing now already where machine learning can pick up micro expressions and identify deception and stuff like that, things that we don't even see when we look at people, all the way through to onboarding and to career management and to either retirement or offboarding, things like that. So I started with trends and machine learning and some of the stats that we see, Gartner and Forrester and all of those guys. And then I brought it down in the second half of my talk let's just talk about the realities on the ground. Now remember, they wanted my advice on how they can use artificial intelligence in their HR division. So then I spoke to them about robotics, or RPA, and the difference between RPA and AI and machine learning. And it came down to the fact that their fundamental processes are not even understood. It's not even documented. And the lady, the head of the division, came and spoke to me afterwards and showed all the notes as if I kind of know what I'm talking about. But they don't have a proper process. They don't even know how people are entering the business as candidates. Through social channels, it's not identified. I said to them afterwards, just on a very high level, draw your process. They couldn't. Like a lot of these corporates that we work for or work with, it's very siloed, it's not understood. And then I spoke to them about what I just call the exponential effect or multiplication effect. So it's garbage in, garbage out. AI is not going to solve their problem. RPA is not even going to solve their problem. In this case, and I think a lot of the organizations we work with is sitting in this position. You need to fundamentally understand your processes. We're talking about process engineering. And the thing I want to talk to you about today is, what is the problem you are trying to solve, and is artificial intelligence the answer? Because in a lot of cases, it's not. Should we all be on an AI machine learning journey? Absolutely. To stay competitive, and your competitors are all doing it. But to just do it for the sake of doing it is not a good start. I worked for a bank, and where the big consulting firms would once a year fly our CIO to Silicon Valley, and I think it happens in a lot of these big organizations. And we would always dread him coming back, because he goes to Spotify and to Google and to Facebook, and now he wants to Spotify a 110-year-old bank, and we must now DevOps and squads and everything, and it's pushed from the top down, and we know these things happen, and there's no real, in fact, there's just resistance from the ground up. So can we learn a lot from Spotify and the like? Absolutely. Wouldn't it be nice if we can all start from scratch? No legacy. We're just a digital first or an AI first organization. A lot of startups are starting like that, but a lot of us work for banks and telcos and the like, where there's so much legacy, not just technical problems, but people problems. To change that massive workforce, people who've been there for 20 years, into a world where we are really more entrepreneurial, faster moving. Look at our unemployment rates, look at the unions. There's a lot of stuff around this topic. All right. How many of you here work for Google or Facebook or Spotify or one of those companies? Good. Okay. How many of you work for a startup that's relying on machine learning and AI to offer services to your clients? Okay, because then I've got the right people in the room. How many of you work for a bank, financial services, telcos, something like that? Okay, how many of you work for a software engineering firm with a banking license? All the banking guys should put up your hands. That's what we should be. We're a software engineering organization relying on software to do banking. But it's this massive journey. 100-year-old banks, 70 or 60 or 40,000 people. What I want to do today is, if I can just give you a few ideas about what I think one should do to embark on this AI journey, then I think I was successful. The other day, I sat with another client, again about AI and machine learning. I said, okay, let's make a commitment. We're going to take the words AI, machine learning, and all those things. We may not use those words for the session. Okay? So let's forget what the potential answer is for your problem. Take the whiteboard and draw out your problem. And we ended up that it wasn't even RPA. We used Microsoft Flow to fix their problem. Okay? Office 365 house, so they already had the licenses. They wanted to automate some processes. First, I need to help them understand the processes, and you've got the tools already. So don't look at all of these RPA tools. I think one of the biggest problems we have is some of these consulting firms and vendors, because they will want to sell you everything, and maybe you don't need everything. I think this conversation should not come from tech or the CIO or somebody like that. It should come from business. Do you agree? Here's the 4 kind of companies. That's why I asked the question earlier. You get AI first companies. I used one of their cars today. So they started off as an artificial intelligence, machine learning organization. All right. None of us here represent a company like that, but wouldn't it be nice? Okay. Get the trailblazers. We know who they are. We get the startups. There's about 8,700 startups at the moment globally that's relying on machine learning as to offer their services. Last year, $9.3 billion were raised by these startups. It's a 72% increase from the previous year. So you can see where the world is going. But then we've got good old Joburg and the companies that most of us represent. Not startups, not trailblazers, not AI first. Lots of legacy, lots of cultural issues. Lots of issues with new entrants in our market, taking our market share away. So where do we start on this journey? Stat from Harvard Business Review, 8% of organizations globally are on some sort of an AI journey. And look at that bottom one. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction, impromptu decision, one business process. Let's dip our toes into this AI thing because the CIO said we should become AI. We should do something with machine learning. Again, I went to Silicon Valley and now I'm back, so now everyone is AI, you know. And then normally these initiatives fail. There's not funding for more initiatives. People are despondent. We are bringing in something. We're dipping our toes. We don't understand what business we're solving. We don't understand where to get the funding. Have we defined what is success? We will know we have been successful when. What is that answer for any of these journeys? And have we defined it? And how do we take our people on the road with us? Because I think we all know this and have seen this, a lot of the people that work with us are very scared of talk about robotics, talk about AI, because we just see how people are going to be laid off. We look at all these stats about how whatever we're doing now will most likely be redundant in X amount of years, and the jobs we're going to do in 20 years if we're still alive doesn't even exist anymore. Now think of all the people in your bank or in your telco. What must they be thinking through? So I think the way we introduce this kind of technology from a change management communication point of view is very important. I like the term cobotics. It's robotics or AI will enable me to do a better job. Will a lot of jobs be lost? Absolutely. But just thinking of all the mundane jobs that a lot of us do, if that can be taken away and I can focus on whatever your strength is, whether it's working with people, mentoring people, rather than sitting on Sunday night doing reports and things like that. That's for me is the advantage. This is most likely a workshop, but I want to, even if I can just let you leave here today with one or two new ideas, I think I would have been successful. Okay. This is stuff you guys all know. Big data, cheap storage, faster processing power, the fact that everyone's connected. We, like never before, we can now harness data from our clients, hopefully when they've given us permission. Just for interest's sake, how much do you think a gigabyte of data costs these days? Not that I hope none of you buy hard drives anymore. Are you cloud people? A gigabyte of data is 0.023 US cents. In 1980, it was $475,000 for a gigabyte of data. I started out my career building computers, like actual desktop computers. And the standard back then was 20 megabyte hard drives. And that was like, wow. And I remember one day somebody ordered a gigabyte, and we had to order it from China. And it came in this special box. And I think us techie okies building computers sat around it, like, where is technology going, Remember downloading a megabyte of something from the internet back in the day, 14.4 modems and those kind of things. And now, downloading movies is like, I want to see that tonight, 3 minutes. My movie's downloaded. now, and we know Moore's law and all those things. So we can just imagine where all this is going. So this, for me, is almost my most irrelevant slide because this is stuff you all know. All right? Just for interest's sake, also, and I think I'll give out some prize, how much data are we producing annually at the moment? I didn't even know this number exists. 44 zettabytes. Okay, that's 44 trillion gigabytes of data per year. Now, by next year, that stat will be different already. You might have heard of the so-called AI winters. I mean, I think it's around the 60s and the 80s. I mean, AI, the concept of AI has been around for many, many years. It's only now that we have the computing power and cloud and things like that to actually make it real. There's not going to be another winter. A few thoughts on embarking on this journey. This is such simple stuff, but we forget this. What are your ambitions? What are you trying to achieve? So is it better customer service? Segmenting your customers better through machine learning? What is the organization's strategy when it comes to their go-to-market plan, and how can AI and machine learning support it? But what is your ambition? For some people, it's a so-called just a tick box. I just want to say, I want to put something in the press, or I want to tell my boss that we are doing some AI thing. Not a good enough reason. Is it serving the business, and is it serving your customers? And that's why I said, maybe at this stage, AI is not what you need to answer that question. So you have to think through it. Take AI out of the conversation and have a whiteboard session or 5 and try and figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve. Business strategy, it goes without saying. Where's the business trying to go? And will AI and machine learning be able to serve that at this stage? And then, and something I'm going to talk about a little bit more, is your AI maturity. Because there's a lot of these big federated old banks and other organizations. There are potentially only a few places, if any, where you can really start on an AI journey. And identifying what is that area. And then build something small. And I can talk about anything now. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's not an AI thing. It's any new initiative. Build something small, show that it works, show that there's value, get funding for the next round. But look at this now. Strategic objectives. So we're not talking AI here. What are your objectives? Reducing your cost base, reducing your risk exposure, improving customer experience. And that should be a priority in any business. So we're not talking about an AI strategy here. It's what are your business objectives? What benefits do you need to deliver, and then enabled by what technology? You don't see AI anywhere on here. Self-service, back office automation, analytics and reporting, customer centricity, and so forth. All right, so get this in place first before you look at AI and robotics and the like. And I think these 3 are most likely things that we are grappling with in every organization. All right. Can AI serve those 3? Absolutely. But again, it's maybe not something you need right now. So on the left, you look at different areas in your organization, then you look at your maturity. I mean, this could be a CMMI or something like that. These are things we know as well. But what you do is you highlight in the kind of the gray where you are at the moment and in the black where you need to go. But in which area in your organization is it a priority to mature from an AI point of view, all the way from manual processing to end-to-end strategic automation? If everything in your organization is black and on the right-hand side, then you're doing something wrong, because you don't have to automate everything. You can't. So what are the priorities? And what is business saying, their business objectives, and how can you serve them? This is easy stuff, but it's the stuff we forget. Years ago, I saw a one-picture comic thing in a newspaper, and it was this big old mainframe. The whole wall was a computer, and it was all these guys with white jackets. And you can see they were figuring out because the thing was obviously not working. And with their boards and trying to figure out. And in the corner was the guy with the broom pointing, and the plug was out. Okay, and it's such a silly thing, but I've remembered that picture so many, many, many times. It's sometimes simple things. Years back, I worked for an organization. Do you remember, and this is now a long time ago, the big black boxes when modems became mainframe? Remember, you used to buy it, plug in your phone, try to do it after 8 at night because it was too expensive, and then the dial-up tone, and then the screen starts downloading. But I worked with the big black boxes. I was the product manager. And one day, our CEO had this meeting for us as a distributor, and the ITWeb execs were there. And the topic, and I was very young. In fact, my boss said to me, "You're the product manager. You can sit in the meeting, but don't say anything, ever." I said, "Okay, all right." And the topic of the meeting was and this is when online selling started becoming a thing, how can we sell big black boxes online? That was the topic. And these oaks and MBAs and multimillionaires and stuff, I mean, I was so out of my depth. And now I remember that picture of the guy showing the plug. And I put up my hand, and my boss looked at me and I said, can I ask a question? And I thought, I'm sure they're going to fire me, because how can all these smart people not think about this? I said, how are people going to buy a modem online if they don't have a modem? Okay, think of it. So why do you want to sell modems online? And there was like about 5 minutes of silence, and people were like sitting like this, and then they said, okay, no, we need to change the strategy. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to lose my job. But I thought, how can you smart oaks not think about this? That happens in these kind of journeys as well. You have to almost be stupid enough like me to know that these things are some things that we need to think about. Don't let the very smart machine learning guys, we love them, and I know some of you are here, data scientists and stuff like that. Please have a business conversation first. Okay. If I've offended you, I'm very sorry. Actually, I don't really care, but moving on to the framework. This is stuff we all know about. The one I want to focus on is down here. So you get AI, artificial intelligence, and then you get IA, intelligent augmentation. And this talks about the cobotics thing. What do we want to augment? What kind of business processes? What kind of functions? What kind of effort through this AI journey? Can't just automate the crap out of everything. What if you think of a bank now we've got tellers, now we see other banks are closing down branches. I mean, it was coming for a long time, and it's going to happen more, but then we also have a massive, big, unbanked part of our population that will still need to go to a bricks and mortar building. I see some of the banks have these little vans now that goes to different townships so that people can actually go and open accounts. So we can't just read what Gartner is saying, what's happening in Europe. We need to translate it through the filter of our country and our own specific challenges. What is the augmentation strategy, the reskilling strategy when it comes to this journey? In every industrial revolution, a number of things have happened. A lot of pushback, because fear, it's the unknown. Massive job losses. But eventual upskilling, and in every industrial revolution up until now, before this so-called fourth one, although we're almost at the fifth already, ultimately the net job gains were a lot more than the job losses at the end of that period of transition before the new industrial revolution started. In every industrial revolution, we were able to upskill people. We're now standing at the door of a revolution that won't happen. We will not be able to upskill people fast enough. If you are computer illiterate, you are considered illiterate. In a short few years from now, if you can't code or understand data, you will most likely be illiterate again. We still need bricklayers and people and plumbers and things like that, but think from a knowledge work point of view. So my son is 5. He's already on an entry-level little coding thing. This is amazing. I went to this conference, and you can actually code this little car to drive and draw a little picture. He's growing up in a world that is 100 years away from the world between me and my father. That's 20 years or 30 years. We all know that. All right. So this is an important topic for me. Never mind labor law and all those very important things, and also the ethics around people and families who need to live, and you can't just get rid of people. But I think we're going to grapple with this issue a lot, and we should, because it's more important, I think, than anything else, is how this journey is impacting the people that rely on employment in our organizations. I don't think there are any easy answers. We can try and upskill people. Let's go back to the bank branches now. If people have worked in the branch for 20 years, how do we get them to code? Can they? Do they even want to? Do we even need that? What do we do when we close down these branches? I don't know if you've been following the news in the Standard Bank, and I see most of the other banks are going to follow suit. And they all talk the legalese talk about upskilling and all that, but I wonder what's happening on the ground. It's just from a practical point of view. What do you do with all these people in the branches and in the call centers and things like that? I don't know if they are. I don't think there are easy answers. Maybe some of you have gone through this and have some good ideas. I don't know if you have a choice other than getting rid of them. Or a lot of them. It's tricky. Okay. Back to that earlier picture that I showed you. Again, this is simple stuff, but it's things we need to look at. Currently in our processes, currently in our maturity, it's the whole people process technology thing again. The isolated and tactical talks about what I've seen a lot in some of my clients, where there's a little area somewhere where they are doing some sort of machine learning or AI, but it's not scalable, or it's just somebody's little kingdom that they're building. I don't know where they got the funding from. And sometimes it's good to start somewhere where you have the right kind of data and right kind of skills. But to scale it across the business is where I think our challenge lies. So is it isolated, and can it serve the business? My experience is more often than not, it can't. I've touched on change already. How do we get the people that work for us and with us not to fear this? We are going to have to go on this journey, whether we like it or not, whether we fear it or not. But I think it's the way we introduce it. AI and machine learning can serve us. Prototyping, and again, this could be any talk, it doesn't even have to be AI, is it's almost like a POC conversation. So as part of this process, identifying that area in your organization where people are skilled enough, people understand it, the data is mature enough and all that, to show value. And to learn a lot of lessons, because none of the vendors that's going to come with they've done this for Bank of America and HSBC kind of pitches, really know the stuff you're struggling with in your local bank here or your organization. So can you work with a partner, and should you? Most likely, and I'm going to touch on that. But build something small that is successful and that you can scale. The problem is that first AI thing you do in your organization, if it fails, it could take you many, many years to do it again because of the bad press, the costs involved, the fear. I mean, you can really start wrestling a monster here if you don't do it right, I believe. The pitfalls, one of them for me is choosing the wrong partner. And I think this year you need to go through a proper process, hopefully not led by vendor management or procurement. You need to lead it, but you need to take their principles. Could be an RFP or things like that. But different vendors have different strengths. Some are good at, for instance, providing the technology. Some are better at implementing. I always say to my clients, a great engagement is when we are done with this piece of work. If you don't need us anymore, then we were successful. You might need us for something else, hopefully. But, I've seen, when I was at this bank, I dealt with 17 vendors, a lot of them the big global ones. They are pitching for business to be there for the next 20 years, and not necessarily serving your business objectives. So when you choose partners in this kind of a journey, you might need that partner, most likely would need, to fast track you on this journey. But when they are done with the POC or the first two phases, or however you structure it, what are you left with? And you need to contract for that. It could be upskilling, or it should be upskilling. It should be IP and IP retention and a number of other things. Otherwise, they come in, it's great, there's a lot of hoo-ha around it, and they're gone, and 3 years later we say, I wonder what happened with that AI initiative. Okay, so how do you make it sustainable? How do you start small, and how do you then start scaling it? And then industrializing it. And that vendor strategy talks a lot about this. And where do you start in your organization to scale it and make it almost like an industrial kind of an initiative? That last point is quite important, comes back to that vendor and partner choice. Do you want to build it in-house? Do you want to buy it? Or do you want like a hybrid of the two? Depending on where you are on your journey and where your competitors are, a lot of us will most likely need some sort of fast tracking from a vendor point of view. But you have to make sure that at the end of that, whatever that engagement is, you can go on without them and you've got the IP. And you need to put that in the MSA or in the statement of work or something like that. I think a lot of organizations are more prone to build something in-house. They're almost like vendor adverse. They rather just buy time and material bodies from you, but don't come with any process improvement or anything like that. There are some organizations, one or two of you that I've spoken to work for them. I'm not going to mention it now. The kind of companies that you submit a 700-page RFP response, and then they come back to you with, what is your rate card? But thanks for all the IP. So it needs to be a win-win engagement between vendor providers and the client. Change, can't reiterate it enough. But I think, so that buy or build, it's really an exercise to see locally and internationally who are the organizations that can help you. Some of the most exciting AI startups in the world are based in Cape Town, doing exciting things. You might not need India for this, or America, or New York, or something like that. There could be somebody locally that can help you already. And do you want to take this problem and give it to someone for the foreseeable future? Or do you want somebody to build it for you, and then it's a big conversation from a procurement and a strategy point of view. Guys, this feels like one of the most elementary talks I can give, but I hope you understand why I'm trying to do it like that. Remember the guy that's sweeping the floor that needs to plug in the computer on the side. and all the guys in white coats with their PhDs can't figure out the problem. So join me in being stupid enough to have a business conversation about all this exciting technology. Any questions or suggestions? Does this resonate with you, some of the things I mentioned? I saw some heads nodding. Could mean a lot of things. Let me ask you a question. How many of you in your organization started embarking on an AI journey of sorts and it was trouble, or it didn't work the way you thought it would, or it just milked a lot of money out of the budget? Oh, some hands, okay? All right. Does this resonate? What are the, maybe for the sake of the audience, are there one or two like key things that I didn't mention that, based on your experience, people should think about? Anything that touches how your clients experience your service or your product, that's where you should start. Now, that's quite broad. So it could be, what is our biggest problem at the moment? So things like, so for me, I don't think we are harvesting all the data we should be harvesting on our clients in order to serve them better. And in a legal way, which is another problem. I spoke to a bank the other day where about half their client data were on a memory stick on the desk. And somewhere somebody needs to go to prison for this to become a real thing in our country. And also, I don't think it's actually law yet. POPIA is not law yet, is it? That's not. Somewhere we need a massive scandal with one of the big banks. I think people are serious about it. So it could be that we don't understand what all this data means. So that's where machine learning and things can come in, I think. But I mean, the bottom line for me is, if it touches our clients, if they're happier, if we're gaining more clients, then we're answering the question.